Welcome back to the Spiro Avenue Show. I'm happy to have you, Justin Spiro. Of course, you're stuck with me every time, but usually the guest is the draw. No one really comes here for me for the most part. Maybe 6 of you do. A lot of you are going to be here for this one. I know this for a fact because I heard this name over and over again as a request. This was a guest that a lot of you have asked for, and a guest that really I was late to the party on in his profile and catching on. I saw this guy, everyone kept saying, get him on, get him on, get him on. I'm like, who is this guy? Is it like the UNC basketball player from back in the day? Who are we talking about? Marvin Williams. Then I looked him up. He's got a huge following, and he's got a great account. Marvin Williams, you're finally here, man. Welcome to the Spiro Avenue Show.
Thank you, Justin. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm humbled, grateful as well. So hopefully it'll be a good time tonight.
You're a beloved figure, man. I don't know if this is like processed in that great big brain that you got, because you're a smart guy. I was intimidated doing prep for your show and watching you speak and some of your, whether you call it a lecture or sermon, however you phrase it. I was blown away by, I can see why so many people like you and why you're resonating with the Michigan State fan base, honestly.
Yeah, you never know. You never know what people think. And I'm not on the formerly app called, the formerly Twitter app called X now. I'm not on there for that. I try to be as encouraging as possible. And so the fact that you have me on, I'm pretty excited about it. I was
honestly so embarrassed that I didn't catch on earlier, because I'm always like, where was I? And I get mad at the people I am following. Like, why isn't this guy retweeted into my ether more? So I kind of blame the audience to a certain extent for not getting me on board sooner. But really liking your stuff. I want to get into this a little bit. The Thy Shadows event,
okay,
which I was famously not in attendance for. I'm fascinated by it. I haven't had any type of long form, more than 10-second conversation on what it was like up there, not just the event itself, but the vibe up there. You had, Mel Tucker up there. You had representatives all over the place from that program. What was the event like? What did you make of it? What was the vibe up there?
Yeah, I thought it was an exciting event. You're opening people up to some exciting things that are coming with the uniforms and that sort of thing. So I was kind of, I felt a level of excitement and privilege and humility and all of that kind of stuff to be present there, to have, some of the basketball players there, A.D. Haller speaking, Mel Tucker, Darian Harris, all of those just kind of really and helping us to anticipate what's happening with the event itself, but also what's happening in this year that's coming up. Spartan Stadium is 100 years old, and I think that's pretty exciting. And unveiling of the uniforms, especially the black shadow, which I think is pretty cool. So I thought it was a great event.
You got it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, just, my only, so I do high support, high challenge. High support is, hey, this is the encouragement. The challenge is, so I do IF, which is intermittent fasting. And I assumed, you shouldn't assume, I assumed at 5:30, I'm going to stop eating because there's going to be food at the event. And we get there and I'm looking around like, throw a brother a Cheez-It or something. And so there was no food, no snacks. And so I missed my window. My window closes at 8. And so I had to, not eat anything until 12 o'clock.
Oh, so you actually stayed, because that's right. Because you said it's like Sisyphus. You're like kicked to the bottom of the mountain if you had eaten after.
Right, at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. So
you just had to go completely.
I had to go from 5:30 until 5:30 that evening until 12 o'clock the next day.
Brutal.
Before I ate again. But besides that, and I say that tongue in cheek, the event was great. Some of the players from 2013 Rose Bowl, Darquez, Denard was there, Antoine Jones, a lot of the players from that era, and again, a lot of present players. So it was really cool to kind of connect with them again, and just to see their faces and let them know they're still thought about. And so I thought overall it was an exciting event.
A beloved team, that 2013 team.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
They're rightfully going to be celebrated here this upcoming season for the anniversary of that group. I'm going to talk to Darian. They got to get some like Roseberry flatbread bread paninis out there or something. You got to feed my guy, especially in that window. That's brutal. But
yeah,
I mean, honestly, from everything I heard, the event just was a huge success. Like no one was coming out of there like, oh man, that was a bust. Everyone loved it. That was up there. And I just think the fact that they did it at all is really cool.
Yeah.
It's just the concept of it, which of course I've beaten this thing to death, Marvin. Darian Harris is the best Spartan in the world.
Yeah.
I mean,
I totally agree.
You agree?
I totally agree. He is a class act. He is top tier. Top tier. Not only was he a top tier linebacker for the team, and again, the Rose Bowl. He was part of the tackle that 4th and 1, but in terms of intelligence, in terms of understanding where players are and where the future of football is going, college football, I think he is absolutely one of the best Spartans out there, and I'm glad that he's a part of the team, and part of the team then, but also part of the staff now to help the Spartans get ahead of the game, whether it's NIL or other things regarding college football. So he's a top tier guy, top tier.
He's been promoted 2 times since the show started. Yeah. So that's the other thing. His ascension, his title changes every 5 seconds.
Was it because of you?
It's not because of me.
No, I'm just kidding.
Darian does not need my help or the help of anybody. That guy, like if I had to make like a draft, I'm doing like a Spartan draft.
Yeah.
I think you got to put Tom Izzo number 1. He's been here longer. Darian was, barely in diapers. But Darian's number 2. And that is a high compliment in terms of the football realm. He's like the first overall pick in the Spartan football draft. I love that guy. But this whole thing was his idea, the Die Shadows thing.
Yeah. And again, first time this is done. And I think it'll get better and better and better as they do it again and again and again. Once you get reps under your belt, I think, it will be, they'll add some things to it. They'll make it even better than it was this first time. But again, the inaugural is always it's exciting, but then now you built a foundation. Okay, now you say, okay, how will we build on the foundation to make it even better the next year?
And I mean, you said it for the first year of this, and I don't know how it'll manifest. You're not going to have a brand new uniform every year necessarily, but however they are able to repeat it in some fashion, they have such a high bar they set in year 1. I was blown away by how good they did. Do you have the picture of Mel with Marvin? I don't know if you ran it when I was jabbering. Yeah, there you go. Was it?
Got the bucket hat.
You got to rep the bucket hat. And Mel's a bucket hat guy too, although not on that occasion. What was that like? Was that your first time meeting him, or
no? So when he first came to town, we connected. So Alan Haller, good friend, attends our church and that sort of thing. And so once you have someone come to town, you want to meet individuals who are part of the Lansing community. So I got a chance to connect with him when he first came to town, just to let him know, hey, listen, this is who we are. This is where we are. We want to support you as much as we possibly can. And that's been the relationship since then. My wife and I pray for the staff on a regular basis, whether it's during, for adversity or just wisdom as they do their jobs. This is a hard job. Their jobs are very, very difficult. You got stuff coming from within, you got stuff coming from without. And so you need wisdom, you need discernment to kind of make it through some of those rough times. And so, but this was, again, first time like taking a picture. I had opportunity. I don't really do the whole, picture thing, put it on my, my account so that, I'm name dropping and that sort of thing. I just try to keep it low key. And if I know people, I know them and I don't let anybody know that I know them. And so anyway, but that was one of the first pictures that we've taken together.
So you're not offended by my collage of photos with these people?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Because it's funny because you're like, I'm not a big photo guy as we're like in our peripheral looking at this.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I'm messing with you. Yeah, I'm the same way because, I've met him twice and I gave him a quarter zip that we had made and, my wife's like, let's see the picture. And I said, I didn't take a picture. She's like, what do you mean you didn't take a picture? Yeah. To me, it'd be kind of lame. Like, hey, nice to meet you. Hey, can I grab a picture? And I don't judge anybody because I've done that like with other people.
Right.
But I like Mel Tucker. I don't know. I just I'd rather know the guy and shake his hand.
Absolutely.
And grab a picture with him.
Absolutely.
I'm a big Mel guy. I don't know if you saw, I have 2 commissioned paintings of the guy. I have another one that's not a painting, but a picture of him on the bathroom wall. So he's on my walls like 3 times in like a 17 square foot radius. So I'm a big Mel guy. You seem to be still on board with Mel.
Yeah, I one of the things I appreciate about him that here's a man who he holds on to his values. He is you never see him get high or low. Again, he stays neutral. It is what it is. And I think he kind of goes with that. He wants to be the calmest one in the room. And if he's the calmest one in the room, it's contagious. So chronic anxiety is contagious. If you are the one that's anxious, then other people around you will be the same. But when you're the calmest one in the room, that is also contagious. And so I think he has demonstrated that, and he has a farmer's mentality. So the farmer's mentality is you don't plant and harvest in the same season. You plant and then you harvest when it's harvest time. And so all of the noise that, that's coming from without, I think he has a farmer's mentality. I'm planting right now. I'm planting seeds. I'm recruiting the best players. I'm recruiting big linemen. If you, again, to be the SEC of the North, of the Midwest. And so the fact that he is planting, and I think the harvest is going to come. I think we just have to be patient. We have to be patient like individuals who are waiting for the harvest. And so, yes, I'm still on board. Support him wholeheartedly as he continues to build this program.
Let's talk about some of the noise. Ben pulled some of the noise that you're talking about. What's out there about Mel Tucker, the perceived lost momentum, the negativity surrounding him. So, Ben, can you play that for us to set the table here as we proceed?
This staff is woefully inept. There are parts of it that need to be changed, that need to be overhauled, because this performance that I saw was woefully unacceptable.
You think guys like Ishbia are going to sit there and watch 3-9, 4-8 seasons and their name is attached to that? No, they're going to wipe the floor with that deal, and they will get out.
People can deal with not having the dudes to win certain games. 24-7 up at home against Indiana feels like the end of the D'Antonio era, and this is supposed to be the crescendo of the Mel Tucker era. That stuff doesn't fly.
I mean, the sad thing is this was sort of the friendliest versions of what I could find in the negative bin.
Yeah.
It's not great. And this is a total flip from where we were a year ago. What do you say? What's your reaction to that negativity? Are you aware of it? Have you heard it? What's your response to
that? Yeah, I hear it. I see it, and see it on X or Twitter, and hear it from others out and about. And again, you look at 11-2, where we're ahead of the game. 11-2 was at a false positive, 11-2, and then to come back with expectations being really, really high the following year and then go 5-7. Yes, it was a disappointing year. But I think the interesting thing is I tell people all the time that you cannot, things that you cannot control. You cannot control what other people say about you, cannot control what other people think about you, you cannot control what other people's motives are, can't control how other people feel about you. The only thing you can control is yourself. And so to be able to listen to the noise, and I think Mel would double click on this and say that the only thing that we can control what's in this building, and that is us. We can control the way we respond to. My response is my responsibility. And so I think that's kind of the thing. Let people say what they want. And I understand that, here's a fan base that, they want to see things move very, very quickly. But you have no idea what's happening in that building, what's happening in those offices. And for people to speculate, I think it's not, number one, it's not good. It says more about the person who's giving the negative comment than the program itself. And so I trust what Mel and the staff are doing. And I think when, if he says that there's something that needs to change, I believe he'll change it. But I think he'll let you know straight up that the only person that he can control is himself. And the only people that the players can control are themselves. And so let people say what they want to. And I'm convinced that if individuals control themselves and regulate their emotions and regulate their responses, I think the team is going to be fine.
I think with the new season, you get that optimism. I've talked myself up to, I have us at 12-0 now, actually. That's how we work. Like, I've added 2 wins to my prediction every 2 weeks for the last couple months, and now I'm up to 12-0. So I think that's, an extreme version, but that's a common thing where the enthusiasm and optimism starts to grow, regardless of what the prior year was like. But if Mel Tucker, who had called you, I don't know, 4 months ago, after the season, off season, negativity was still pervasive. It was louder than it was now because last season's struggles were fresher. And he says, Marvin, I'm having a hard time. Can you pop over to the office and just be my pastor for an hour?
Yeah.
What is that conversation like if he's just throwing you the floor and saying, Marvin, everywhere I turn, people are talking about me. We know he's more internalized, but let's say he sought that advice.
Sure.
What is your advice to Mel Tucker in that meeting?
Yeah. I think one of the things is adversity is necessary. Adversity is absolutely necessary. If you want to build character, then adversity is necessary. So 11-2 was great, and the 5-7, yes, disappointing, but I think almost it's kind of necessary to have that bump in the road, that adversity, to begin to build a foundation that I think this team is going to be built on for this season. So that's one of the things. Second thing I would say, listen, Mel, you can only control yourself. You cannot control. And again, I'm going to keep coming back to this because this is so key that you can only control your response to the negativity that's coming your way. You cannot. I think it's sideways energy to try to respond and answer all of those. And again, this might sound really kind of Homerish, but it's really sideways energy to try to answer everybody's criticism. And I think the other thing that I would tell him is the best way you deal with your ops is to be unoffendable, is to find yourself unoffendable. That
was your tweet yesterday.
Yeah.
I saw that.
To be absolutely unoffendable, because that will drive the ops crazy, because you don't want to give up your agency. The moment you give up your agency, then your ops have control, and they can press a button at any time to cause you to react. And you want to be responsive as opposed to reactive. So those are some things that I would tell him, and then get back to the grind and let's get it done. Those are some things that I would say.
What's your hourly rate? Ben, are you taking notes? Good thing this is recorded, because I feel like you're talking to me. So I'm picking battle. No, I'm not picking. I'm responding to picked battles left and right. Yeah. Justin Thin, my buddy, will message me and say like, "Hey, you're arguing with somebody with 6 followers." I'm like, it's like, this guy's on his 3rd account this week. Like, what are you doing?
I think it's just, people want to rile you up. And I think once they do it, they laugh at you, because they say, now I have control. And at any point I can say something to Justin, same thing that I said last week, to get you upset, to get you bent out of shape, get you tweeting things that eventually will, like, man, why did I say that? Why did I actually let them bait me into that? And right now, the program, if you notice, it's relatively quiet. It's relatively quiet. You've not heard a lot of things like in the first couple of years. And I think number one, it's by design. Number two, I think that's one of the wisest things that the program can do is don't worry about what other people say about you. Handle your business. Once you handle your business, and I think that's what they're doing. They're handling their business. And I think this team is going to surprise people on the outside, probably not a lot of people on the inside, because they see what's happening. I think they're going to surprise a lot of teams, a lot of people on the outside, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm here for it.
I can tell you for a fact your perception is accurate, because we had Darian Harris on after this past season, and he explicitly said, hey, we're looking at maybe we don't do as much of the keep chopping stuff publicly and make it more internalized. Not that they're going to stop doing it, but he said, there's all sorts of shared language we had when I was a player under D'Antonio. And, in the bad years, people would have said, oh, that didn't work. And then in 2013, suddenly it works. It's the same slogan, stuff like that. So I know they were really looking at that and saying, we tried to bring the fan base in. We didn't come up with Tuck come in, but the fan base ran with it. Yep. And we embraced it. and now it's used to mock us after a bad year.
Absolutely.
So you're right. I mean, great job by you, because he said that explicitly on the show. That's just your perception. You nailed it. They are trying to go more internal with their affairs, I think, and be less out there and less loud.
Yeah. I think it's about building the culture. So you either build a culture or you allow the culture. And so Mel Tucker and all of the staff, I believe, they're building a type of culture that where individuals are they are being liberators for one another. They're giving, they're not abdicating their responsibility. They're not protecting. They're not shying away from the hard things. Again, you want to, you look at last year, you say, hey, let's define reality. Reality last year, a lot of injuries. You had the tunnel stuff. You had a lot of stuff that happened last year. And so there's this sense where, last year was like, is the culture suffering? And I think, you build it or you allow it. And I think that it takes time for people, players, coaches, staff to buy into a culture that a coach is bringing. Listen, this is only the fourth year. This is not like 14th, 15th year. This is the fourth year. And I think, again, we have, just like any other fan base, we have a rabid, fickle fan base at times. Again, I said that.
Yeah, we're part of it. We can say it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I think we have to, have the farmer's mentality is to be patient. You plant, and then you wait for the harvest. And I think we're going to see a little bit of that this year.
I'm curious for your take on this, because I endorse everything you said in terms of how you would consult Mel Tucker and, worry about yourself. Where I had a real hard time being the quote unquote bigger man, or turning the other cheek, pick your cliche, was in the wake of the tunnel incident you just mentioned. And I don't want to get into the deep dive of the incident itself, but sort of the aftermath and the fallout. But I want to start with a clip from you and a great, I don't know if it was about a year ago or less than that, great clip that we found you to sort of frame your perspective and the things you deal with. You're, I don't know if you prefer Black or African-American for, the phrase,
yeah.
But, you're still in this society now as a Black man, as an African-American, you're facing this racism. Yep. And that's something we had a rude awakening to this past October in the aftermath of that. So Ben, can you play the clip of Marvin really quick, and then we'll get into this a little bit deeper.
I live in this skin every day. I am profiled at least once a month. I was profiled in Rite Aid, a Rite Aid near my house. I was in the row looking for potato chips and nobody else in the store. So the clerk, the cashier, comes down my aisle pretending to fix candy that was already in order. And she just stood there and she had eyes on me. And I had to laugh to keep from crying, because in 2020, I'm still dealing with this.
First of all, that breaks my heart. I hate hearing that. That just makes me want to go punch somebody. So I'm sorry for that you ever have to face anything like that. The reason I selected that, though, is because you are a pastor, advisor, a mentor to so many people. And in that clip, even you are saying, it's so hard for me. I hate that I have to face this. I laugh so I don't cry. So this still affects you, obviously, emotionally when you face stuff like that. Is that a fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It impacts me even to this day. And this is just one incident. Again, as I mentioned, there are a number of other incidents that that I carry in my heart. So part of it is so again, I keep coming back to this because I will not give away my agency. I will not, even if someone called me the N-word, as much as that gets under my skin. The thing that I have to remind myself of is I know that I'm not that. So I have to remind myself of who I am. And I have to remind myself, I have to with other people, I have to remind them of who they are. So identity, so this is the kind of the way I think about it. So identity determines my action, and my action determines my feelings. not the other way around. It's not my feelings determine my actions, and my actions determine my identity. Because if that were the case, then every time someone said something to me, then my feelings would take over, and then I might end up doing something like, you may have to come bail me out of jail, or something like that.
Right.
So, but when I recognize my identity is I'm a black man who is. Again, I don't know what all your listeners are in terms of spiritually, loved by God, loved by my family. So that's my identity. So my identity determines how I will act in that moment. And that moment, I could have actually said something to her, but that would have been even taken out of context and might even be misconstrued. And so again, my identity as, a black Christian man determined my actions in that moment. I was not going to take that on and be hurt by that. Even though, again, I'm not a bigger man. I'm not like, man, this is, you're so holy and spiritual. No, there are things that went through my mind that I wanted to say, but in that moment, I didn't want to give away my agency. And then that determined how I felt. I was hurt by it, and I was able to talk to other people about it. But in that moment, I still carry that, but I'm not going to let it force me to do something that I would later regret.
But is there something to be said for, even if it's not an embarrassing reaction that you wouldn't want your kids to know about, not just, saying, oh, I'm going to go about my day. I'm honestly asking because that's what I wrestle with. Because, did you see some of the stuff that was out there with the players?
Yeah, some of it, yes. And some of it, again, after a while, you turn it off because it's, it bombards you. To your point, there is absolutely, you have to look at where do we have to stand up for justice? Where do you have to stand up as an ally? For whether it's your black and brown brothers and sisters, I think it's absolutely important for that. Now, in that moment, that's what I chose to do. There are other moments where I have stood up and said, no, this is wrong. This is not right. And so I think there is discerning when it's the right time to fight for justice, and when it's the right time to say, I'm going to let that roll off my back because it's not worth the energy, the time, and it's not worth me giving away my agency in that moment. So that's what I'm saying. It's not I'm a bigger man and I just take the punches. That's not what I'm saying. I think we have to be discerning when it's the right time and when it is the time to say, something. I would stoop so low to respond to that. And I'm just not willing. I'm not willing to do that.
Yeah. So it is effectively a case by case basis.
Absolutely. For
so many words. So let me put a couple of the cases in front of you. I'm curious for your general reaction. So Ben, can you throw up our little 3 examples, of which there are many? So this is, from a Woodward Sports clip. And there was a general update that they had posted on the Michigan State investigation, nothing inflammatory on their end. And there were 25, 30 responses like this. Quote, MSU's a bunch of thugs. Enjoy not bowling. You deserve everything you're getting. Michigan owns this conference, and you suck a bunch. You suck a bunch. Sorry, the grammar's terrible. not my fault. You suck a bunch of thugs, and you took on the identity of your head coach. So you suck. You're a bunch of thugs. You're getting what you deserve, and you took on the identity of Mel Tucker, who is,
that's
he's like a total gentleman.
That's crazy.
What is thug quote about Mel Tucker?
Yeah.
Even the language, the code of the language aside, even if you chose a different word, that's ridiculous. Ben, can you throw the second one up that we pulled? This is the same thread. Wow, MSU is a bunch of thugs, and apparently it's okay with their program. I don't care what the U of M players said. There's no reason for the state players to jump them and hold them so other players can beat them and hit them with a helmet. I think we agree. It doesn't matter what you say. You can't hit somebody.
Right.
So I'm with Kelly Cummings on that one. But this whole, MSU has a bunch of thugs, and it's okay with their program. Based on what? They suspended everybody involved indefinitely. Like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah.
Thug language aside. Third piece, Ben. So this is our buddy Odell Bredham just tweeted out 2024 superstar 5-star David Stone showing love to Michigan State and rocking a Coach Brandon Jordan gear. And the response, I mean, this was right after, quote, another thug. David Stone is a high school kid.
Right.
Who hasn't done anything.
Nothing.
And that was not the only thug response to a David Stone tweet that Brett had in that, the months post-tunnel incident. I see that stuff, and I have many examples out there. I quote tweet and say, why is he a thug? I go after that.
Yeah.
If you're my pastor, are you telling me as an ally, because they're not saying about me. Yeah. I'm jumping in someone else's fight. Am I picking a good fight going after that stuff?
Yeah, I think it just depends. Like, I look at that and I see immaturity. So again, if you cannot regulate your emotions, then it's kind of a level of immaturity. Are these individuals tweeting this to get a rise in response out of MSU fan base? And again, if that's you, just keep looking at me.
True feelings to me, Marvin. I mean, you can't. I don't know these people, and if I did, I would unknow them. Yeah. But that does not seem like a troll. That's their genuine.
And again, I hear you. I hear you. And for you to respond and to say, ask the question. Now, if you're going back tit for tat, then I would probably advise, hey, Justin, not do that. But if you're asking serious questions like, why is he a thug? Do you know them? Do you know their family, the family they come from? Do you know them personally? Because every single one of us, given the right circumstances, we probably would respond and react in ways that we would look back on, on the next day or the next day and look back on yesterday and say, what was I thinking? What was I thinking when I did that, said that? We both agree that if with the kind of using a helmet, hitting someone, that is never ever right at all. And I credit Mel Tucker for getting all the facts, seeing what happened, and immediately responding and giving consequences to where consequences were due. So again, to say that they're taking on the identity of their head coach, the head coach said, this is unacceptable and we're going to respond to it. And so when I see things like that, that's me personally. I love the questions, asking the questions, finding out more information, as opposed to getting into a Twitter battle. We know that online stuff never works. If you want to go out to lunch with me, or if you want to meet me someplace, let's talk about it. And again, this is me. This is not you. And I'm not saying
I'm
you do
your
this.
advice, Pastor. I mean,
I'm not saying you do it the way I do it.
Yeah.
And I don't trust myself many days. I don't trust myself to respond in a way that is going to constantly and consistently be where I'm not going to hurt you with my words. And I can do that. I was an English major in college, and I can pull out words that you don't even know to hurt you. And I just don't trust myself to do that, to be drawn into those moments. And there are a couple of times where I am drawn in, and it's like, man, why did I say that? And I don't, man, I want to do things and say things that if my kids looked at them, they would say, yeah, I'm proud of my dad for saying that. I'm proud of my dad for engaging in a way that was relatively honorable. Again, that's me as a pastor, as someone who has somewhat of a voice of influence, and I want my life to be consistent with what I say, and so I tend to think before I press send. Think a little bit more like, how is this tweet going to be perceived, and that sort of thing. I have a kind of a funny story regarding in 2018 I sent out a tweet, and it was when MSU played. When MSU, you don't know the weight of your words sometimes. So in 2018, Michigan State went out to Arizona and played Arizona State. And so I'm at home, and I think the game ended up being 16-13, something like that. And I tweeted something very benign about the offensive line. I think not doing what they were supposed to do, and somehow that tweet got back to Coach D'Antonio. I didn't know how close I was to the program. He allowed me to come closer to the program. And so someone screenshotted my tweet, sent it to him. And then Tim Allen at the time sent me a DM and said, hey, someone sent this to Mark D'Antonio. So I text Mark and just said, hey, listen, can we have a conversation about whatever, the tweet? So he was in a meeting. He said, I'll call you when I'm on my way home. So about 9:00, he calls me and he reminded me of who I was in only Mark D'Antonio fashion. And he said, you're family. We would expect that from outsiders, but you're tweeting to 4,000 of your followers, which I didn't think that was a lot at that time. You're tweeting to 4,000 of your followers, and there's a sense of you're tweeting something negative about the program, but we've allowed you to come close to the program. And so I felt like, wow, I didn't know my words mattered that much. And then he said, listen, I'm not mad at you, but he did kind of go in on me. I'm not mad at you. And then he gave me some great tickets to the Indiana or the Central Michigan game. And, but it was a lesson learned for me that sometimes we don't know how influential our words are. And even the most casual words, even the ones we think that are benign, can come across either hurtful or negative, and nobody can see your face. Nobody can see my face when we tweet those things. So anyway, that's me. Those are lessons learned for me. And so yes, be an ally. Yes, fight for justice. But I think also discern what we're putting out there, because we represent more than just ourselves.
I mean, I am probably the whitest dude on the planet, so I can't relate to dealing with the criticism and the hate in that way and in that brand. People hate me for other reasons, but I've never dealt with like really racism in any form, and certainly not the way someone growing up in this country black would deal with that.
Yeah.
So that's a given. I don't understand that, but where it hit home for me is when it was about specific kids that I knew. I mean, Jacoby Windman was one of the players suspended.
Top tier guy.
He was in your chair 4 days before that incident, previewing that game with Xavier Henderson and Darius Snow. I've said it repeatedly, other than Kenneth Walker, the nicest guy I've ever had in here.
Absolutely.
Maybe you'll unseat him, but just the nicest guy.
Yeah.
He was called every racial slur in the book, including the N-word in 2 cases that I had pulled, which we will not be sharing.
Yeah.
But it's so nasty about his involvement in that. And that's a guy that I knew.
Yeah.
And it's not just that he's a good guy or he's not all bad. Is one of the nicest.
Yeah.
But he came in here, yes sir, no sir, just beyond nice.
Yeah.
It really pissed me off.
Yeah.
Xavier Henderson broke up the fight.
Absolutely.
Got his team.
Great leader.
Great captain.
Yeah.
Love that guy.
Yeah.
One of the all-time, with Antoine Simmons, Darian Harris, one of the all-time great Spartan captains.
Yeah.
Broke up got his team back in their locker room.
Yeah.
He, to this day, still does not have his Instagram comments public. He's like shut them off.
Yeah.
Because of the hate he got. Thug this. Are you going to go gangbanging with your boy? Basically everything you can think of. He still doesn't have his comments. You can't comment anymore.
Yeah.
This is a guy that broke it up.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
I know it affected him. He was on the show 4 days before. That's where it drives me nuts. And I know Darian, whom we both love, had these conversations with these kids, and they struggled with it. So I want to take you through some excerpts of Darian on our show, talking about the experience in the aftermath.
Okay.
Get your reaction and kind of how you would handle it. So, Ben, can we start with the first one? We'll roll Darian Harris talking about that initial backlash in the aftermath of the tunnel incident in Ann Arbor.
As soon as something like that happens, and like you said, you're talking about mentions and social media and, again, the conversations with student athletes that nobody on the outside saw or ever is going to see, the conversations that I had to have with individuals, in my office who just didn't understand why this was happening to them from the overall landscape, and when you say something like that and people say, well, they put themselves in that situation because of this. Yeah, we understand that. Obviously, we acted on that. We understand there were consequences, but it's still young men. at the end of the day who didn't. It wasn't so egregious that you say, you know, you got a distance from that. It was to the point where you really had to explain to them, here's how we're going to navigate through this process.
First of all, he's an A+. He's just fantastic.
Absolutely.
He's so
Absolutely.
good.
Yep.
I agree with everything he said. What's your reaction? Do you agree with where he's at there?
Totally agree. Again, we're talking about 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old young men. And to be able to mentor them through this and to coach them through it, to recognize their consequences, yes, but we're going to get past this. And here are some tools to help you get past this, because this is not the only time you're going to see these comments. You're going to see these comments literally all through your life. As long as you're in black skin, you're going to see these comments. And so that it doesn't happen again, so that your emotions don't get the best of you, again, go back. Here's some tools that you can use. So the way they're coaching, or the way they coach the young men to respond and to react to, there's a difference between reacting and responding. So we want people to respond, not react. And I think that's kind of what Darian was getting at. How do we help these young men to respond like young men and not react according to what somebody else is saying, and someone giving away their agency to individuals who call them thugs, who call them animals, who call them a pack of whatever. And again, I get angry with that, and yet I recognize as well, after all of the anger is settled, we still have to give tools, not just young men. You got to give me tools. Got to give other people tools, my white brothers and sisters tools, so that when I'm sleeping, that you're standing up. You're standing up at the family functions and that sort of thing. If someone says something, I would hope that Justin would say, you know something, I have friends, literally, I have good friends, and I am offended by what you're saying. So I need to be able to sleep at night knowing that you're going to stand up for me in that way. And I think these young men, to have a Darian Harris, to have a Mel Tucker, to have Scotty Hazelton, some of these other guys who said, listen, we got your back. Again, it was not right, but guess what? We have your back, and we're going to get through this. And I think most of these guys are in a different position today. They've learned lessons, growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And I think these guys, that all of them who were a part of it, I think what Darian was getting at, how do we help these guys have a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset with this situation?
Well said. And Ben, can you throw a little more Darian up there going through this issue in a little more depth? Our second Darian Harris clip. I could play Darian Harris clips all day. He's the man. Let's listen to the second one. What were those couple weeks like after, where these kids are being vilified? You guys are being called the products of a scum program. Your coach is a, quote, thug. You guys were pariahs, even guys that had nothing to do with anything. What was that like, just in that building and managing that emotionally?
I think it was eye-opening to our student athletes for kind of what can happen in the world, you know, from the prominent, so to speak, position you're in, albeit fair or unfair. You know, when you are on a national stage and an incident or a situation like that happens, people are going to show their true colors towards you. So it was eye-opening. It was, you know, dare I say, educational.
Yeah, so you seem to agree with that.
Totally agree. Again, if you know, we all are going to fail. It is how we respond to failure is going to determine where we go from that position. You can easily feel sorry for yourself, and again, consequences. Listen, I receive the consequences. Take the consequences. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to own my part in this. And I think that's the only thing you can do. Own it, and then say at the end of the day, how do I learn from it? And I would dare say, be kind to yourself and give yourself grace. Yes, I failed in this moment. I could have done something different, but now we're a year removed. How do I be kind to myself? I think sometimes when we fail, we're our own worst critics, and we sulk and we don't get back up. And if you look at these guys now who were a part of that, the tunnel incident, these guys have gotten back up. They are they have focus, and I just can't wait to see what they display on the field. Not just on the field, because football is just one part of this program. The thing that I love, what Darian is saying, what Mel has said, that when we sit across in the parents' living room and they decide to give their children, their young men to us, we have now a responsibility to not only teach them football, but also to teach them to become even better young men. And so that when they're released back into the world, whether they go to the league or not, when they're released into the world, they can say that MSU football program had some level of shaping and molding of these young men. And these guys can look back and say, yeah, I am a Spartan dog for life. Yes, playing football, but man, I have a brotherhood, and these coaches and staff, they've taught me some things that I just would not have gotten otherwise. And so I love, again, you're right, Darian, he hits it out of the park every time when he's talking about mentoring these young men that are coming up, and I love it.
I would tell anybody, just whatever Darian tells you, just roll with that. I mean, I'm older than Darian, but if he wants to mentor me, I'm agreeable to whatever advice he wants. He's the man. He's the best. We'll finish with Darian here. Let's play the third and final clip. This is, I really put Darian on the spot, and forewarning, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked him. I don't think there's any denying this with the Mel Tucker racial component here. Let's play the Darian clip, and then we'll get into your opinion on this. I'm going to cut right to it. If Mel Tucker's a white guy, does this reaction mirror exactly as it has in this situation? Is there any difference? Because I think that has something to do with it, especially when people are saying throw Mel Tucker in jail,
right,
who didn't even do anything. Is there some element of black coach versus white coach here?
I believe so. I believe so at the end of the day, and that's just the society that we're in. And again, people can push back on that or say everything's not about race, and unfortunately, it is in a lot of cases. And so we have to navigate accordingly and teach accordingly.
I undersold it, if anything. To me, it's almost entirely. I mean, if it were a white coach, of course there's going to be backlash for that happening. I'm not saying that it's like 100% that, but the intensity, I think, if they were all white guys in the tunnel or 5 white guys, 2 black guys, and the coach is white, I don't think it's half of what it was in terms of the public reaction. Is that crazy? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm double clicking on what Darian said, and again, I have personal experience to back it up. That where if it is if Mel Tucker is not a black coach, I think to a certain degree there will be hall passes given out to that coach to say, he needs to get control of the program, and then the backlash wouldn't be as long as it was with this situation. But because Mel Tucker's a black coach, and again, from my experience, we have to do it 2 times, 3 times is better. We have to burn the midnight oil a little bit longer. We get a short leash when we're in leadership positions, because there are individuals who say, they're not smart enough. They're not skilled enough. And so you heard all of that. He doesn't know what he's doing, all of those kinds of things. He needs to get control of his team. And they, again, using other terms. So I think if it's a white coach, there may be the leash is a little bit longer and the backlash is not as long. And the narrative is not spun like we see in the situation here.
Did you see, we talked about it on my show, I interviewed the reporter about it. Did you see any of the John U. Bacon reports from his 2 anonymous sideline sources about the toxicity of the Michigan State sideline?
I did not.
Okay. I did not prep this. I mean, we had beautiful graphics on it on that episode when I've talked about it with multiple players, and so I'm going to have to go into paraphrase mode here. But John U. Bacon, who's a friend of mine, great Michigan writer, New York Times bestseller, wrote what I think is the best sports book ever written, 3 and Out. He's awesome. So I'm not, bashing John. And we had a healthy conversation about this on camera, but I didn't agree with his decision to report this. He reported that there were two Michigan sources on the sideline of the Michigan State game this year. Nothing to do with the tunnel. This was during the game, that said the Michigan State sideline was the most toxic thing they've ever seen, that they were openly talking about staffers and players injure Blake Corum, injure J.J. McCarthy, end their careers, the most vile stuff. One of the sources said, I'm paraphrasing again a little bit, but said in 30 years, I've never seen anything close to this bad. And then one or both of them, I think both, but definitely one of them explicitly said, this is on Mel Tucker, this is his fault, they're taking after him. I have asked this question on camera. Anyone could pull up the episode. Darian Harris in that episode. Keon Coleman, when I had him in here. I've asked off camera multiple players. I'm forgetting at least one. I mean, Ben, you can, that was on camera on the show. 5-6 people total. They don't even know what these people are talking about. They're not even allowed to, on that team, talk trash.
Right.
There's not a single person, and I know you can say, oh, well, what else are they going to say? Well, the two sources claiming it are anonymous. These people are on camera addressing these. They not only, and even off camera, they're telling me that's absurd. They've never heard anything like that. And this wasn't, someone said one thing. The entire 3 hours, the sideline was toxic, and it's Mel Tucker's fault because they're taking after him. What evidence do we have of Mel Tucker wishing injury on anybody?
Yeah,
that stuff drives me nuts.
Yeah, I again, what I know of him, that is, again, we're talking cognitive dissonance. It's just, it just doesn't. Here's, a coach that says, if you're sitting down on the bench and you're not engaged in the game mentally, even if you're not in the game, why would that, I mean, we're talking about a coach that has discipline and trying to teach discipline to these young men. And again, I can't speak on it. I don't have a conversation about it because I've not heard that that report, but it just seems so antithetical to what I know who Mel Tucker is, and the coaching staff know who them to be, and I just don't see it.
Oh, Ben, if you want to be a hero and dig up one or two of those graphics while I'm jabbering here, I don't know how easy it is to pull that up unplanned on the fly, because it would be interesting to get your reaction to the exact quote. So I'm not unfairly paraphrasing anything, which I don't think I am. But my point is, that is, for my money, top 5 media member in the state of Michigan, the guy I have a hell of a lot of respect for. I'm a friend of his, and he's a friend of mine. I love the guy.
Yeah.
But those are 2 University of Michigan employees talking to a New York Times best-selling author who reported it. So this is where we are dealing with this stuff on a more official level. This is not just some 6-flower egg on Twitter where you can sit down someone and say, hey, ignore him, who cares? He's trying to get a reaction out of you. This is 2 University of Michigan employees going kind of on record, anonymously, but wanting to be published, with a reputable reporter saying that Mel Tucker is creating this toxic, violent atmosphere. And it's not just, it's different. It's bad enough to say, he doesn't have control of the program. That's not what they said. They're saying he's endorsing this. This is what he wants them to do. He's taking after, they're following his lead. That's different than a lack of control, institutional control or whatever. And that's coming from Michigan employees. That's coming from the New York Times bestseller reporting it. That's where it hits me, where what do we do? I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah. And again, not knowing that situation, not being on the sideline, I can't speak on that. Again, I just, again, I don't see it. And again, I could be totally out to lunch, totally wrong. But again, identity determines actions, action determines feelings. And so again, I have no clue.
Yeah, fair enough.
So,
but if you're taking my word for it, it's bad. And I just think the whole thing is ridiculous. And that's where, I do get into the, like, what would I tell the kid? So you said you've met Jacoby Windman, or
I've not met him. I just know of him. And, again, heard some of his interviews, and again, a very, very nice young man. So,
and your perception is right. And like I said, he is like, leave it to Beaver, like 50s sitcom nice. I mean, he is such a good dude.
Yeah.
And so we'll just use him as an example where, let's say Jacoby Windman calls you. We did the Mel Tucker example. What is your advice to him? I understand the mental advice of, don't let it affect you, but what is the actionable advice? Get off social media? The guy just got an NIL deal with a dealership through his social media. He shouldn't deprive himself of a voice, I don't think. Block everybody, address it, call it out. What would you tell Jacoby Windman where he says, Marvin, I'm getting these thug tweets every day. I'm just trying to live my life. What do you say to him?
And again, and when I said that you just kind of not let it affect you, it's more than that, because what are you going to do? What are you gaining by responding, I'm not a thug? It's going tit for tat. So again, going back to this, I can't stress it enough. Jacoby can only control himself, and he can only control his responses to those kinds of things. His response is his responsibility. And for him to say, something, maybe I don't be active on social media as much. Maybe it is blocking certain people so that it's not kind of getting in my head. But again, if you know who you are, and if Jacoby knows who he is, then everything they're saying about him, like they're told they don't know him, and because they don't know him, they don't know his identity. They don't know who he is as a person. They can see him on the field, but they don't know him when he talks to his mom. They don't know him when he talks to his siblings, if he has. They don't know him when he is really out, when nobody's looking, when nobody's watching. He's actually doing things for other people and not bringing any kind of fanfare. So again, I know I sound like a broken record on this, but again, our response is our responsibility, and that's one of the ways I would advise him. Get some people around you that remind you of who you are, and really that's what accountability is. Accountability is, I think, is sometimes a dirty word, but part of the theory of accountability is I need people around me to remind me of who I am. Because there are days where I show up and I don't act like Marvin Williams. But if you're in my circle, hey Marvin, hey, I just want to remind you of who you are. And so again, that's part of have a circle of people around him that will remind him of who Jacoby Windman is.
Jacoby is at a level of, like, I want my daughter to marry that guy. Like, I mean, she's too young. But if she were old enough, that is like, I want my daughter to marry you or somebody like you. He is that level of great. And that's where it made me mad. And again, I had him in here 4 days before. I know what a great guy is and by reputation, and Darian swears by him. I mean, it drove me nuts with all of them, but particularly it had a resonance for the guys that I had met and known, and Xavier Henderson, same thing, especially in his case, because he had nothing to do with anything. It's like, what are you doing? I thought the whole thing was dumb.
But I think you have an opportunity. You have an opportunity. You have a wide range of listeners. You have a great amount of influence. In those moments, when Jacoby says, I'm not going to speak for myself, Justin has an opportunity, or Marvin has an opportunity, or Darian has an opportunity. Like, you don't know him like I know him. And I don't care what you say. I'm not going to determine a person's life based on an incident, but you don't know him like I know him. This is a young man that is respectful, and I support him. If y'all want to come at me, if the ops want to come at me. But I know him, and I know him well enough to say, I'm going to be an ally for him, and I'm not gonna determine the rest of his life based on an incident that happened, which again, given the circumstances, any one of us can find ourselves saying things and doing things that we later regret.
Jim Harbaugh got on camera the next day and said, he suspects that there's going to be severe consequences, that there must be, apologies aren't going to be good enough. he would be shocked if there's not charges brought, was effectively calling for the harshest manifestation of legal consequences for these guys. What was your take on that as a guy who's, in Harbaugh's position, leading similarly situated, young black athletes coming up? And what did you make of his reaction? Did you have any issues there with his response?
Yeah, I think again, without all of the evidence, to make that statement so quickly, and you saw it on the other side. Mel said, "Hey, let's wait until we see all that's coming out." But I don't know Jim Harbaugh, don't know his habits and that sort of thing. But I think I probably would have waited a little bit to determine. Let's see, and then let's make statements. But again, if are there young men in that program that have done things that would require the same kind of consequences? And I think there are a couple of situations where there was kind of just a slap on the wrist. And again, I'm not getting into all of that.
That's a deep hole.
Yeah, that's
which is kind of its own point.
Look at the time. The time is gone.
Yeah, like, man, we're going to go 2 hours. But that's kind of the point. The fact that is such a deep hole to get into is its own point.
Yeah, I think the response was relatively too quick. And you again, you're still talking about 18, 19, 20-year-old young men. How can you coach them? Not just coach them on the field, but we're talking about coaching them in life. And I think that to say those kinds of things, those words, they are deep, they sting, they hurt. And I can tell you, I have talked to people who, fathers, coaches, others, have said some piercing things when these kids were 18, 19 years old, and they still live with those things when they're 40 and 50 years old. So our words matter. Our words matter. And again, that's the reason I go back to even sometimes our casual words, even the words we joke with, they can have long-lasting consequences where people end up in counseling to say, well, my coach said this, so that must be who I am. Or the opposing coach said I was a thug and everybody respects him, and so that must be what I am. And so I think that being very careful, being very discerning with our words, I think is super, super important because these young men are impressionable, and some of them will carry some of this. Some of them are already carrying things that their mothers have said, their fathers have said to them that have wounded them. And now you add another authority figure saying those kinds of things to them. They carry that. They carry that along. I got stuff that I've carried that my father said to me when I was 13, 14 years old. And so I can imagine there's some other individuals who play, this game called football, who carry some wounds from authority figures. And so I think we just have to be very careful with our words. And if it were me, I would have waited, and I would have chosen my words a lot more carefully.
Yeah, I mean, there's such a disparity there. I mean, at the time, what was Harbaugh, like 56 years old, and you have this, 56-year-old guy making $7-8 million a year, getting in front of a camera and saying, I expect the harshest of judgments on these 19-year-olds, 20
to ruin their lives.
Yeah, I mean, people wanted them thrown in jail, and and for Harbaugh, you can make the leap. I want them punished to the fullest extent. That would be jail time technically for one of the charges. So, I mean, technically, if we're being literal here. So I thought there was no grace in the response. And whenever you bring this stuff up, they always say, oh, there's Michigan State playing the victim. No, like Michigan State did bad stuff. But the difference is we own that. Yeah. We suspended our guys. Yeah. Mel Tucker apologized.
Immediate response. Immediate response.
And all-time, the aforementioned John U. Bacon, the Michigan guy, was even like Michigan State administratively, a home run. They were, it wasn't even lunch the next day.
Absolutely.
And then they added more suspensions because the investigation was ongoing. But the guys that they knew were involved immediately.
So to me, that goes to integrity. So again, in concert, Alan Haller in concert with Mel Tucker and the rest of the program, again, an integrous program, in my estimation, in this one move, to say that this is our identity as a program. Our identity is that we have values, and we're going to live according to those values. Something happened, it was not good, and we're going to respond right away. And we're talking about individuals who were on, number. They weren't buried in the depth chart. They were players, and the immediate response was Mel Tucker, Alan Haller, like, we don't care if they are up, at the top of the depth chart or buried in the depth chart. Something happened. It was not right. There are consequences, and we hold our players accountable, and we remind them of who they are. And so I was, again, glad that they responded the way they did, and super. It says a whole lot about the program, in my estimation. Silence the noise out there says a whole lot to me about this program, about the coach, about the leaders of this program.
I think the whole thing needs to be dropped from the criticism end, particularly with the kids. I mean, Jacoby Windman is the one example we keep coming back to. He was in that chair talking about it with me on the show, that he had been the 3-time Defensive Player of the Week in the Big Ten, tied the record of all time in 8 games. He had 4 games left to break it. He's on there with 3 other great all-time Big Ten defensive players, and he lost that. That was a guy. He would have had 4 cracks at winning Defensive Player of the Week one time. He'd already done it 3 times in 8 games, and he would be alone in the record books instead of tied. Even from a career achievement standpoint, what a loss.
Yeah.
Not to mention all the the criticism he's received. So when I had a tweet a couple weeks back about Jacoby Windman, and there's a response in there, oh, you mean the thug? The kid's been through enough. That was dumb last year. But even if you're the biggest hick,
right.
Seriously, dude, get over it.
It's old news. It's old news.
It's beyond the pale at this point.
And so here's the point. And here's the point that I make, that that we're the only ones that can control us. And here's the point. It will never be enough. I don't care how many apologies. I don't care if he goes out and he plays his heart out. I don't care if he's the nicest guy in the world. It will never be enough because of that incident. And that's when individuals, their motives, their motivation is not to see anyone succeed. It's not to watch a college player do his best. It is to kill his career, kill his psyche, his soul, so that when he goes out on the field, he is not just playing against an opponent, he is playing against the world who hates him or who doesn't like him. And that's the reason I said, if you can wake up unoffendable, it drives the opposition crazy because they cannot control you. I'm sorry, I'm preaching a little bit now, but you
were brought in here partially for this reason. Honestly, we need a little bit of.
I'm serious that when you're unoffendable, your ops are like, what can we do to get under their skin? That's the reason it's important. If you and I can control who we are, regulate our emotions, and not get all bent out of shape when we walk in a tunnel or someone says something to us, taunt us, says something negative about us, just keep pushing, keep walking, because they're trying to get a response. And if they can get a response, they can get what happened last year to happen again. And I think Mel Tucker is mentally preparing these guys. I think emotionally preparing these guys so that when they hit the field, the only thing that's going to be on their minds is kind of this tunnel vision. We handle us. We play for one another, play for our coaches, and we're going to silence the noise around us. We're going to silence the noise on social media. We're going to silence the noise of everyone else who has who those individuals who have negative things to say about us. Again, I keep coming back to this because, Justin, I can only control. You can say things right now to me that are offensive, that are hurtful, and if I let you and you see reaction out of me, you say, I got him now. I got him. And I'm going to keep saying it until I turn this table over or throw something at you. But if I sit here and say, man, say what you want to. Like there's nothing you can say right now that will offend me. And again, I'm not saying that comes like overnight. That comes with adversity. That comes with training. That comes with tools to say, like, there's nothing you can actually say about me that's going to offend me, that's going to get a reaction out of me. Now, I will respond to you. So how do you know that about me? Well, I don't know. Well, see, now the tables have turned a little bit. So now I have the power versus you. So again, it will never be enough, and people will continue to say it. And at some point, we have to say, I'm washing my hands of it. I know who this is. And I'm not going to respond to this thug comment, that sort of thing. Anyway, I'm done now.
Can I be offended on his behalf? Even if you're he's not offendable. Can I be?
Yeah.
That's my guy. I love that guy. Yeah.
I can tell. And one of the things that I appreciate, even from this conversation, you've had people at this table. I don't know if this was a recent one. You had Malik Hall on the show, and individuals kind of lambasting him for, questioning his effort and questioning whether he was going after a 50-50 ball and that sort of thing. And again, your split second decision. If I touch it, it goes out of bounds. Then if I don't touch it, then it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of idea. And the nicest guy in the world, not one of the nicest guys in the world, and to question his effort. But again, you have all of the ops saying these things, and these are some people who are probably insiders saying these things. And I'm just saying, man, I don't know if I have time to answer every single opposition that comes my way. And so you have these guys sitting at the table, you know them better than most. And so for you to say, man, I'm offended by what they're saying, I think that lets me know that you care about these players. You care about not just what they do on the field, not just what they do on the court. You care about who they are. And to me, that's big ups to you for that.
I appreciate it. I get, and the effort thing was egregious. That's a ridiculous thing. The tunnel, the racial stuff will always be. I had a hard time with it, honestly. Like I was, having long conversations with my wife, like, how do I handle this? How do I help these guys? And we, help two of the guys get their attorney, to deal with the stuff. And it's just, we wanted to help. And I talked to Jacoby and I messaged him and I'm like, man, I am sorry. Like, this is, please don't hate white people for this. This is, it's like, it's a helpless feeling is kind of what I'm getting at. And I still don't know, what to do. And I think you said it best earlier. It is case by case, but I wanted to show support, to him and those kids. And it drives me nuts. And, I want to move past it, but I feel bad for them. And I know them as guys, particularly Jacoby and Xavier and some of the other guys involved. And it drove me nuts. Last thing on this, I promise. Alan Haller, you said you're friends with him. He attends your church, right? I don't know to what extent you can disclose conversations with him. Do you think this weighed on him? He is in a rare position as a black athletic director, even rare to have the combo of the black head football coach, black athletic director. There's like 4 schools, I think, in the country that have that distinction in the Division I. What was his conversation like with you? If you ever got there with him, did this ever come up?
No, it's not been other than I just told him, you're made for this job. This is your job. If they offer it to you, I think you'll do a phenomenal job. And you have my total support. Again, as I told you, my wife and I, we pray for the entire staff, including the athletic director, Alan Haller. Again, I know the weight is probably heavy. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? I know the weight of that position just from the mere fact as a pastor. And yet I think he's cut out for the job. He has the demeanor. He has the right attitude. He has the integrity. He has the heart. He loves Michigan State, and he loves Michigan State athletics. again, came up through the ranks, number 22, cornerback, safety. And again, I just, the fact that he's an insider, he knows the program inside out. I think he's the right man for the job. Whether, whether he was black or white and I knew him, this man has a level of integrity. And the fact that he is an African-American who knows what he's doing. I love the position that he's in, and yet I don't envy the position that he's in. I bet he says, Marvin, I don't envy the position you're in as a pastor, because we have people in our church that they have their ideas about this and their ideas about that, and so love the brother, and I think he's the right man for the job.
Well said. I've met him once, loved him, really good conversation with him. He ran up to me at homecoming last year. He did like a radio hit, and he came up and he liked my vest because he recognized me. I was so flattered. I was like, oh my God. For you, it's no big deal. But I was like, oh, Alan Hell. But a great guy when I talked to him. I've heard nothing but good things about him up there. Well said. This is a complete off topic. I want to finish here, though. You have a passion for something.
Okay.
This is going to be a surprise for you. Just food in general. I've noticed this trend recently in the past few weeks since I've really caught on to your stuff. But Cajun food. You are a very judgmental Cajun food guy. So am I. I'm a huge snob. Ben, can you throw up the tweet of... This is so funny. So someone tweets out this picture of it was supposedly gumbo, which I don't know what that is, but you go, that's not gumbo. It looks like Campbell's soup out of a can over rice. My father was born and raised in Baton Rouge. His was either red or brown.
His roux was either red or brown.
Yeah, I missed the roux. His roux was either red or brown. I'm not certain what's going on with chef sauce here. Get back in the lab and work it out. When the pastor is smacking you around, Cajun food is my number one. You can take everything else. I gotta have my jambalaya. I gotta have my gumbo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jambalaya is my death row meal. So tell your dad is, or I don't know, is he still?
He's deceased. He's deceased.
Sorry to hear that. Yeah. But he's a Baton Rouge guy. He was
Baton Rouge. Gumbo was his thing, and he would get again seafood gumbo, shrimp, crab, literally throw everything in, sausage. And another dish that he made is sakatash, which is okra, corn, and tomatoes, and that's another Cajun dish. And there were days where we would beg him to make gumbo. And crab is expensive, shrimp is expensive.
Yes,
but when he threw down, man, it was like put it over some rice. And there are days where his roux was brown, his roux was red sometimes. But he never followed a recipe. He could make it to perfection to the touch. He'd do exactly what spices to put in, and every time I see gumbo or taste gumbo, I think of my pops. So
I will gladly sit with you for some gumbo. Where can we find it though? Because Fishbones is like the smallest chain here, pretty good as chains go. I have not found any authentic Cajun Creole places in the entire state of Michigan.
Yeah.
Do they even exist?
I don't know. So I'll tell you, and this is a little bit of a drive. Went to Chicago for a friend's mother's celebration of life service. And we hit up Papados. I don't know if you have you tasted Papados?
I lived in Chicago for 4 years. That's where I went to law school.
Okay.
So yes, I've been. Yeah.
Papados. And again, I'm not suggesting you drive the 4 hours or 3.5 hours.
It's a great spot.
But Papados is a great spot. They again, their catfish, their gumbo is amazing. I've not found a place here. My wife and I, we try to reenact my father's gumbo at times, and we made some a couple of weeks ago. And it was good. It was good. Not my father's.
Close though.
Yeah, but close. Tanya, if you're still listening, if you're still watching, your gumbo was great, but not like my pops.
Is it like, are you guys tag teaming, or is one better in the kitchen than the other? Like, how do you?
No, she's much better. She's much better. Now, I did, to my credit, I did make pizza bowls tonight.
Okay.
And so she, before I left, I said, so how is it? Because I was getting dressed. I said, how is it? She said, this is amazing. So I left on a high, knowing that my wife tasted my cooking and said it was great.
It's always a good endorsement. I've never gotten that endorsement, not because my wife's picky, but I'm like a deplorable chef. I mean, I do make stuff. My kids kind of like it, but yeah.
She's an amazing cook, but she bakes better than she cooks.
Okay.
She's a great cook, but her baking is absolutely amazing.
But the gumbo got your thumbs up, though.
The gumbo got my thumbs up.
So we'll have to negotiate with your wife. We'll do it after the show, and we'll work something out.
Okay.
Because my wife's awesome. We'll trade, like, my wife will make you guys something.
Okay.
And send it to you.
And we'll send you the gumbo.
And I got to get some of that gumbo.
We'll send you the
I can't
gumbo.
find any good gumbo. There's no good gumbo.
We'll send you the
Chicago,
gumbo.
there's multiple places with good gumbo in Chicago.
Yeah.
You can't get it here.
Well,
Or at least I haven't found it.
It's a bet. We'll do it.
Yeah.
We'll do it. So.
I mean, we'll work on that trade, something fair.
Yeah.
Marvin Williams, man, I know we ran a little long. Really appreciate your time. You were awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me, and humbled and grateful. Thanks for the lively conversation tonight.
Please come back. We'd love to have you.
If you have me, I will.
Oh, in a second. Are you kidding me? You were awesome. Marvin Williams, Justin Spiro, Spiro Avenue Show. Ben, love you. Eric at home in your boxers, love you. Great time with you, Marvin. Please do come back. We'd love that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks. That was it, guys. We'll see you next time. Thanks.